Always good to have a good clearing of the throat before the show starts. Excuse me. All right. Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. That so weird. The fade out thing. It's actually not me doing that. God, I have a lot of noise issues, ground issues going on. Sorry. How y'all doing? Good to see you. Where are the YouTube people at? We have some people watching on YouTube. I know I posted the show kind of late. I'm trying to get back in the groove. Oh my God. I was out for a whole week and trying to figure it out again, all over again. But greetings. We're live on Rockfin. I see some Rockfin people. How you doing? We're live on Callin. We're live on YouTube. We're hanging on out. And let's get into it. Let's get in. Oh, got an after hours tip from Osama. Thank you, Osama, for the tip on Rockfin. I appreciate you. How loud is the hum for you guys? It's kind of loud in my... It's loud in my headphones. How loud is the hum? All right, we're here. We're live. We're back. Regular times, regular hours. Hopefully there will be no interruptions. This week should be fairly consistent, hopefully. Real quick, good way to support the channel is buymeacoffee.com/blackbearnews. It's a great way to support the channel. You can tip me on Rockfin. You can tip me on YouTube. You can subscribe to me on Patreon. All those things. All right. Partly this video was titled this because it's going to sound a lot like yesterday's video. We're going to talk about a cold front. We're going to talk about a climate change or a lawsuit, fossil fuel company lawsuit. We're going to talk about some other things as well. We're even going to talk about JFK. I don't know, William, I like that question, although I'm live on YouTube, so I don't know if I want to answer that question right now, but maybe we can get back to that. Maybe we can get back to that question later in the show after I leave YouTube. YouTubers, are you all here? I don't know. It's so weird because if I don't post a show earlier in the day, for whatever reason, people just don't show up on YouTube. I would think y'all would know the time of the show, but I don't know. YouTube could be hiding my show. Did you like that? Clack. This is called professionalism. All right. There's a cold front. We all know about this. Coming to Houston. We'll talk a little more about this. This week, tens of millions of Americans are about to experience one of the coldest days of their life. Their life. Wind chills as cold as negative 70 in Wyoming and Montana. Negative wind chills as far south as Austin, Texas, and even single-digit wind chills in the Florida Panhandle. Deadly cold. It doesn't happen much in Florida, but it does. It does happen. I'm just reading the comments on this to see if there was anything new and or interesting. Chonky Boy says Texas power grid about to head to Cancun. Anyways, it's going to be super cold. In places where it doesn't usually get this super cold. So that in of itself is going to be dangerous, right? For people who are not used to this. Pipes freezing, roads icing, et cetera, right? It's going to be different for people who are not used to this. So immediately we'll put, you can give me all the, historically it was this cold back in 1892. You can do that all day. But I'm just telling you right now, it's not going to be a good look for the people of Texas. And a lot of plants are going to die because Texas has that year-round agricultural weather. And so when it gets down into the teens, all that agriculture is going to go away. So that has significance for the supply of food in the country. And then there's going to be stresses on the grid, blah, 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 et cetera, right? This is going to have an impact. But there's a lot of people already, there's a lot of people on Twitter that are like, it's not that bad. All right, then. Waiting for the YouTubers to show up. Kinda, not really. All right. I don't know if this is the same lawsuit we talked about yesterday. Give me a second. No. Sorry, guys. I'm moving a little slow today. Or feeling a little slow. It was just a long week for me. And I kind of recovering. Still recovering. You know those times when you exert yourself a whole bunch? And it's usually not, it's usually like the day or two after that when you really start feeling it. Am I being shadow banned, Caleb? I don't know. It's interesting though. Can nobody find my video? That's very strange. You don't know where my channel is? You can't find my video? I told you I'd be here at noon. But, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. The shadow banning. YouTube likes to do that. I stopped caring about subscribers and likes and views on YouTube because they're all of them are wrong. I'm super duper extremely suppressed on YouTube. That's all right. It's okay. It is what it is. Let's see. Oh, this is a different story. I was just looking at yesterday's story. But this is a story about a lawsuit coming out of Puerto Rico. Hold on. We got a call. You know what? I'm going to take a call just to break it up. Excuse me. How's it going, John?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me fine?
Yep.
Cool. I just tuned in, but I heard you talking about, and I think you were just kind of, it was more of an aside, but how the The follow count and the like count and the view counts aren't real.
Right. They're not.
They're certainly not accurate.
Oh, yeah.
They might be relative. Like if you have 1 million views and I have 100,000 views, it might be the case that you get 10 times more views than I do, but it's probably not 1 million and 100,000. It's probably a lot less than that, I think. But I had heard some advice recently that I thought was pretty good.
Okay.
And it was like it was actually from Gary Vee, if you know who that is. It wasn't to me. I just saw a video of him giving some young guy advice, and it was he basically said, don't worry about the views and the likes and all of that. Worry about making good content and keep putting it out there and keep interacting with the people who do show up.
Oh, sure. And yeah. I mean, I stopped. Yeah. I stopped worrying about the likes and the views and all that a long time ago. But what's frustrating though is that particularly on YouTube. So I went from 2 years ago making quite a bit of money. Like I was pulling in a pretty good income from YouTube and like donations. And then YouTube started telling me that I wasn't getting any views on my videos anymore, right? My views went from like a few thousand a day to like 100 or 200. And I was like, that's just absolutely not true. Right. Because I didn't lose all those views because people didn't like me anymore. Right. I had if anything, I have a strong core following. So it may be small, but it's pretty consistent. So when I go from a couple thousand views to a couple hundred views in the space of like less than 12 months, that's absolutely not even possible. It's not even. It's not possible. It is absolutely not possible. Not in a normal algorithmic atmosphere. Like not even if if it's just wide open and there's no algorithms. Not possible. It's absolutely. Here's another thing. I went to Rockfin exclusively for about a year. I just left YouTube because I was depressed by it all, and so I have in the space of 1 year, I have like, I don't know, almost 10 times the subscribers on Rockfin that I have gotten on YouTube in 5 years. That's not possible either. Rockfin is a tiny, comparatively to YouTube, tiny outlet, and YouTube is massive. And so, in the space of 5 years, I should have, at least double what I have on Rockfin, and it's just not real. It's just not real at all, and it's absolutely, tinkered with. And so I'm not like, oh my God, where did all my viewers go? But the thing that really sucks though is that actually messed with my income, and so that's what made me very depressed, because I was pulling in a certain amount of money based on my viewership and my views, and they just completely destroyed that. And so, and that's fraud. Actually, they're committing fraud at the moment. YouTube is committing fraud when you do stuff like that. You're engaging in fraudulent activities. You're actually engaging in things that you could be not just sued for, but put out of business for. They're committing fraud.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, the way
whatever.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I know for me, the way I use YouTube is I go on and I basically use the recommended, and I'm like, ooh, a new video by this guy that I really like. But what I've noticed is over the years, I'm still subscribed to some people, but their videos just don't show up on my recommended, so I'm less likely to click through to them.
Right.
I have to go search them out individually, and I'm like, wow, there's 10 new videos I haven't seen, but it's not showing up on my recommended.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, and I'll watch quite a few of those videos, thinking this will surely update my recommended. Nope. So I think some people really are, what do they call that? Ghost banned?
Shadow banned, ghost banned, yeah.
Shadow banned? Yeah.
Sure.
I really think it's a major issue on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. It is an issue. And I'm kind of here just because there are some people that just won't watch me anywhere else. And I don't know, whatever. I'm playing around with being back on YouTube. Even though it doesn't really, I'm not really super plugged into what's going on YouTube, but I'm here and I'm doing videos every day, and so like I just don't really like watch the numbers, and I would prefer if people went elsewhere to watch me, because YouTube isn't YouTube is not a nice entity in the world. They're actually working against humanity on several levels, and so but people are on YouTube because it's people are on YouTube because it's convenient, and so I was like, okay, why not? I'll do some videos on YouTube for a while. I'll see how it goes. But
yeah, I'm surprised you're not using video on here.
Not yet, just because I don't know. I'm trying to manage so many things in my life, and so it's just one more thing to manage. I may do video and call in. I haven't even really gotten into it yet. And I kind of like the idea of having a podcast version of my show.
Yeah.
So, like, I listen to a lot of things on Rockfin, and mostly Rockfin, but I don't really watch the videos. I just have it playing as a podcast. So.
Yeah, same here. Although sometimes it's kind of nice, like, things happen where you're like, you wish you could see what was there. So I'll listen to Joe Rogan on Spotify in my car, and something will happen where I like want to see. So then I'll open my app and I can look at it. So I don't think there's a lot of harm in just having video on as like a way for some people to engage, because some people are just visual.
Right. Well, eventually I'll get there. I just haven't. I know that it's available. I'll get there eventually.
Cool.
All right.
Well, anyway, I just wanted to call in and say something about that.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
Catch
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Bye.
Right on. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Things are weird these days. It's all good. I just keep plugging away, and it's unfortunate because Rockfin is probably my favorite platform, and probably the best platform that I'm on right now. However, there's a very climate skepticism, or neuroticism, or I don't know what you want to call it. The force is strong on Rockfin with the climate deniers, and so people get on there and they're like, oh, you should watch Whitney Webb and the T-Lab and figure out what they're doing. I'm like, dude, I watch those. People leave comments because they don't actually watch my show and listen to what I'm saying. So it would be good if people could just listen before commenting, but that's all cool. We all have our biases, and even truthers, even people who feel like they're totally in touch with the truth, completely have confirmation bias, and completely are siloed in their thinking and can't think outside of their own silo, and that's unfortunate. So there's that. It's all good, guys. We're here. We're hanging out. We're kind of picking up where we left off. I've been gone for like a whole week. And so, that seems to slow down the momentum on everything. But trying to get back into it. And then my show was at the wrong time yesterday, and so that also has something to do with it too. So this is the first show back that at the regular time that I usually do, and so I'm kind of just getting back into the groove. But let's talk about this story a little bit. Big Oil is behind conspiracy to deceive public, first climate racketeering lawsuit says. And this is absolutely true. And that's why it's funny that, there's a whole group of people who think they're in touch with the truth, who are like, all these things and entities and corporations are deceiving us, except for Big Oil. It's so ridiculous. It's moronic is what it is, but people are super in touch with it, in touch with that particular idea. The same racketeering legislation used to bring down mob bosses, motorcycle gangs, football executives, and international fraudsters is to be tested against oil and coal companies who are accused of conspiring to deceive the public over the climate crisis. And this is old news. This is really old news. In an ambitious move, an attempt will be made to hold the fossil fuel industry accountable for decades of deception in a lawsuit being brought by communities in Puerto Rico that were devastated by Hurricane Maria in 2017. Oh, and then they were devastated by several hurricanes since Maria, if you were paying attention. It's also funny, too, because climate skeptics, or whatever you want to call them, are now only interested, interested in models, right? That's all they have. They actually can't even go to evidence or data that things are accelerating or that things are, something extra is happening in the world. They can't even use like real-time data and evidence. They have to go with like these weird cherry-picked graphs from like the Danish meteorology, and then they have to get super cherry-picked about the graphs, and then they have to just talk about models. And I'm like, yeah, we're not talking about models. Models are old. All the models are old. We have new models, and we actually have new data. The data is saying something, new and interesting if you pay attention to the truth that you think you always say that you're paying attention to, but you don't want to pay attention to it on this one. That's fine, because it doesn't fit your narrative. Let's listen to Dane Wigington. You should get to know something about Dane Wigington. I don't know. Did you ever question Dane Wigington's stuff too? I don't know. Whatever. But I digress. In an ambitious move, blah, 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 I read that Puerto Rico is one of the most affected places by climate change in the world. It is so precariously positioned. They get hit on all fronts with hurricanes, storm surge, heat, coral bleaching. It's the perfect place for this climate litigation, says Melissa Sims, senior counsel for the plaintiff's law firm Milberg. The 1970 Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations, or RICO Act, was originally intended to combat criminal enterprises like the mafia, but has since been used in civil courts to litigate harms caused by opioids, vehicle emissions, and even e-cigarettes as organized crime cases. Now, the first ever climate change RICO case alleges that international oil and coal companies, their trade associations, and a network of paid think tanks, scientists, and other operatives conspired to deceive the public, specifically residents of Puerto Rico, about the direct link between the greenhouse gas emitting products, and climate change. This fossil fuel enterprise, which remains operational, according to the lawsuit, resulted in what? That's a weird sentence. Resulted in a multitude of damages caused by climate disasters that were foreseen but hidden by the defendants in order to maximize profits. This is historically factual. Again, but anyways, I can tell you there's something way bigger than the green energy conspiracy or conglomerate, or the people that are profiting from the climate crisis. There's something that eclipses that by like trillions of dollars, and that's called people who profit from climate destruction. But it's not convenient to actually talk about that if you're following a particular narrative. That's fine. It's okay. It's cool. Anyways, the plaintiffs are 16 municipalities in Puerto Rico, towns and cities that were hit hard by two powerful hurricanes in September 2017, Irma and Maria, which led to thousands of deaths, food shortages, widespread infrastructure damage, and the longest blackout in U.S. history. Sims, the senior counsel, said what's different about this RICO case is that we have their enterprise in writing, the decision by rival companies, their front group, scientists, and associations to act together to change public opinion regarding the use of their consumer products by telling people something that they knew was not true. According to the lawsuit filed in the U.S. Federal District Court of Puerto Rico, evidence of the conspiracy dates back to 1989 when the defendants, which include ExxonMobil, Shell, BP, and Rio Tinto, individually and through trade association, formed the Global Climate Coalition. as a not-for-profit corporation to influence, advertise, and promote the interests of the fossil fuel industry by giving false information to the consumers and the public at large. It argues that so-called rival companies conspired for a common purpose, to deceive consumers and sow confusion in order to keep fossil fuel sales high and profitable, and that the GCC was a propaganda machine specifically set up to oppose the Kyoto Protocol, the first major international effort to combat climate change. To do this, a written action plan was devised in 1998 to mislead consumers by convincing them that global warming was not occurring. And if it did happen, there was no scientific consensus on whether the fossil fuels were to blame. In other words, the action plan was allegedly a climate change denial plan executed through a network of dark money plowed into think tanks, research institutions, trade groups, and PR firms, and provide a roadmap for an open-ended enterprise that is still implemented today and carried out by an entire group of journalists who are who supposedly are telling you the truth, but won't tell you the truth about this, and I find that completely bizarre. And also suspicious. It makes me, I love the truth, and I love people telling the truth, and I love people who are willing to tell the truth. But when people in lockstep tell you a lie about something, and they're all supposedly telling you the truth about things, and then they all in lockstep tell you a lie about something, I find that suspicious as hell. Or again, moronic. And I will keep saying these things, even though they are unpopular on Rockfin and other places. I'll keep saying them, and I will be vindicated by saying these things over and over again. I will keep saying them because they're true, not because they're, if I wanted to be popular, I would say all the popular things and stop talking about climate change. And talk about how, Klaus Schwab wants to eat bugs and Agenda 2030 and all that, and now it'd be super duper popular. Because that's also a thing people do too. All right, Phantomas, what's up? How you doing?
Been a bit.
What up?
Yeah, so I was just wondering if you're thinking about going to the Greater Reset Convention in Texas. If you've heard about that.
The Greater Reset Convention.
Greater Reset Convention, because it seems like you would be a perfect fit there, Kevin. I just wanted to give you a heads up. January.
Okay.
In Texas, and I think it's going to be for like 5 days or something. So you have a lot of.
Are you talking about the Greater Reset? The what's his name? What's the guy's name? I can't think of his name.
Bradley. I know who you're talking about. Bradley something. With the resistance.
Conscious Resistance, yes.
Yes.
Why can't I think of his name right now? I'm sorry, I'm just completely blanking out. I actually really like his work a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't thinking about it. I didn't even know it was happening.
To me, it just makes sense, like that you would, if you could, it would be a cool thing to just stop by and see what it's all about, especially for the people who can't go around the world, in my opinion. I'm thinking about going to it.
Are you? What are the dates?
I think it's like late January.
Okay.
Maybe January 21st or something like that.
Huh. Yeah, if you all have heard about the Greater Reset is like an alternative. The purpose of it is to provide an alternative to the Great Reset plan, which is a plan. Which is a plan. I don't doubt that this plan is in action. Right? They're trying to tell you. These people are trying to tell you they care about climate change under the guise of not caring about climate change. Right? It's kind of like carbon credits.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Are they kind of like climate skeptics? I didn't know about that.
The Greater Reset?
Yeah, I didn't know. I only knew.
Generally the people who go to these, who are involved in these things.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say, oh shoot, what is his name? Now I'm going to be really upset that I can't think of his name. Oh, Derek Bros. Derek Bros. They actually do believe that climate change is, mostly they believe, they're saying, hey, there are things that are going on in the world and we need to do better things for the environment, right? Although they don't spend any time talking about climate change. And that also makes me skeptical. That makes me skeptical as hell.
I didn't know that.
People who are like, I don't know, people who are like generally truther oriented, and then they go, and then they might make an aside to like, of course we're doing bad things to the planet, but they just never spend any time, at all whatsoever talking about climate change or the advancement of climate change.
Yeah,
it makes me I don't know, skeptical on some levels and also kind of sad, because it's like, are you guys not talking about this because it's not popular? But I find it part of the narrative it actually helps create this narrative that it's only a ruse, that climate change is only a ruse. It's only to get over on people. It's only to, advance a particular agenda, right? And it's not actually a thing that is happening. The only people left, even on the left, on the alternative left, who still talk about climate change are like Lee Camp,
right?
Certainly Chris Hedges talks about climate change. There are a few people, but even Jimmy Dore doesn't even talk about climate change anymore. Jimmy Dore used to talk about climate change, and now he doesn't even talk about it anymore. And that makes me like, that makes me a little upset, because it's like, dude, it's still real, but like I think he knows or realizes that it's a very unpopular subject.
Do you think that's because of, in particular with the greater reset type of people, that's their wheelhouse now, and they have to confine to that? That's how they feel that they have to keep their audience?
You're right. Yeah. I mean, yes, I think on some levels it's like, it's always as an aside. You're right. Creative Experiment says Graham Elwood talks about climate change. You're right. He does. Although Graham Elwood, I have a hard time with Graham Elwood for other reasons, but
I know what you're talking about.
But he does talk about climate change. But he's one of the few left talking about climate change, and it's unfortunate because it's being absolutely buried. Climate change has been. It's even it was not popular prior to the pandemic, and now it is even less popular of a subject. It's even harder to talk about now. And I don't even know. I don't even know what the future is regarding climate change, or even talking about climate change, because it's become such an unpopular subject, for various reasons. But one of the biggest reasons is that the truth community was more so correct about COVID. And I agree with that. I agree with that assessment, their assessment of COVID. I agree with it. But they're totally incorrect about climate change, but they all group it all together. It's the same thing. Right? They're lying about climate change too. No, they're not. Actually, you're wrong. you missed it. You missed that one. And their hubris is going to actually undo their correctness about the other things. Right? They're gonna walk right into looking stupid on that, or not even, or just right. If they're wrong on it, they're just they'll just it'll just fade into the background, into the past.
Well, you know what's funny? It works in their benefit to not mention it this way, because you go to their convention, you're not saying you're you're a climate skeptic or anything like that. You just bring in all the people you can at this event or whatever.
Right.
Get you in their membership, their subscriptions, whatever. And then you just don't have to say anything, which is kind of like, that you bring up an interesting point now. I had no idea about that. And when I was listening to it on the AM Wake Up Show, I don't think they talked about it. They talked more about getting off the grid system and stuff like that. So it's like,
they never talk about climate change, and they only refer to climate change as a ruse only. And that part of it, like, I like them generally, but like, I've heard them talk less. I've heard them go less hard. In the last few months, I've heard that their tone on climate change shift a little, as in, we're still not talking about it, but we're not going at it as if it's a root. Right? They've just kind of just stopped talking about it altogether.
Right.
And they're not quite like going against it. And maybe even sometimes TLAV, I hear them going at climate change, as if it's fake or whatever, mostly. But they actually might be shifting a little bit. But I just, whatever.
Well, I have to say that's really disappointing. I'll just close with this. I guess don't go to Greater Reset.
Yeah,
don't go. Don't support that. I wouldn't support that. If that's all you want to talk about, survival, and you just want to sell whatever you want to sell, and you don't want to talk about what's happening all around you, around the world, and people suffering. I mean, that's kind of sus.
Yeah, it's like you can see the speakers in the schedule. You can see who's speaking are people who are, let's see, Del Bigtree. I saw, what's her face? Who I really like, Catherine Austin Fitz. I like her.
Yeah.
But none of these people will talk about climate change as if it's real, like ever.
Is Whitney Webb a climate skeptic, or has she veered into that?
Well, that's the thing, is that Whitney Webb never, she always supports, what's her face, Cory Morningstar, and she's always she never talks about climate change. Yeah, Whitney Webb never talks about climate change as if it's a real thing. She only talks about it as if it's a ruse. And that is weird to me. It's just weird to me.
I have to tell you, it seems like a deliberate way to balance the right wingers out, because they're so their heads are so warped and everything is so twisted in their minds. Where even you bring up the issue of Planet Earth, you get that image of that hippie in their head in the '60s and Jane Fonda, whatever else kind of programming they have.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. You bring that. Well, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
And I guess you need your own convention, Kev. How about that? You need your own
I guess so.
Convention. All right, we'll talk later, man.
All right, man. Thank you.
Peace out.
Anyways, this article really, correctly lays out that it is a conspiracy from, probably the most powerful, corporate or, multi-corporate, multinational entity in the history of the planet Earth, which is like the fossil fuel corp. You might actually include the weapons manufacturers in there in that conversation. But what is it? What is it that drives the entire industrial civilization, including weapon systems, including everything else that goes along with industrial civilization? Everything is driven by fossil fuels. So fossil fuels are, this is the biggest, most massive, most influential, most interconnected corporation, whatever you want to call it, financial industrial entity on the planet Earth ever. This is the biggest thing ever. And it literally controls, it's at the root of everything. And it needs to go forward if industrial civilization is going to go forward. Like the fossil fuel industry absolutely must go forward as is. Even to build out, a green revolution, the fossil fuel industry must go forward in a massive way. Even to build out all the renewable energy systems that we're supposedly we need, right? This is how massive and influential the fossil fuel industry is, and yet, an entire community of truth-telling journalists leave this entity out of all of their conversations. Pretty much all the time. It's like, okay. You blew it. Give me 1 second. No. Okay. All right. Tim, thank you, Tim. We blew it. 2022. Yeah, somehow, I don't know. Whatever. Just I won't repeat myself. Serenity, Tranquility, Peace says Fauci destroyed the whole climate change debate. Nobody is going to believe any science ever again. I mean, I can't argue with that. I can't argue with the reason why people wouldn't trust. But, But you're leaving out, if that is your standpoint, if that's your, conclusion, it's not a very scientific conclusion, right? So again, the scientific debate around COVID or vaccines or whatever actually relies on science. But then you go to this other thing that you want to, you want to draw skepticism around, but you don't use science. You don't have the science. You do not have the science behind you. You don't have solid, evidence. You have, maybe little bits of evidence, but not very well put together. So it's all, what are you going to do? All right. Dragon says, Dragon Rockfin says, maybe consider some people's outlook on climate change mitigation plans. Similarly to gun violence mitigation plans, that they are being used to implement plans that are significantly motivated by dominion manipulation rather than claimed intent. Sure. I get it. I get it. Okay, I'm going to take this call from Joseph real quick. Before I do that, I'm going to check on the coffees, buymeacoffee.com/BlackBearNews. We don't have any coffees as of yet, or Rockfin tips yet today. But those are both good ways to support the channel. What's up, Joseph? Hello, Joseph. Are you there? Those are both good ways to support the channel. What's up, Joseph?
Hello. How are you?
I'm cool. How you doing?
I have to get rid of your echo, my echo here for you.
Hello, Joseph. Thank you.
I am here. I'm having trouble neutralizing. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Did you feel the earthquake, first of all?
Oh, no. I didn't feel any earthquake. Was there an earthquake?
There was a 6.4 north of you.
Near L.A.?
No. Way north of you.
Oh.
But I wondered how far it could be felt.
I didn't feel a thing. So...
Well, you and Fantomas were talking about COVID and the disarrayed information a little bit, and the climate stuff is the same. And in the climate way of our discussions, we would have way more on board with us if there weren't the belief that you can financially, the largest mouthpieces of the Green Reset are economists. And they're the hardest to argue with because they don't look outside their models like you were saying, right?
Sure.
But they're economy models. They're not mineral and gas and physics models. They're correlated economic models based on recommendations by models put out by organizations like the IPCC. So the assumption on everybody's part that these are all well-intended organizations, even by the people in them, that's the real problem.
Right. Right. Well, I guess that's the issue with all of it too, is that nobody's really willing to look at the reality of what's going on. And so everything is seen through the lens of, so the truther community and even the liberal, mainstream liberal, I believe in climate change community are all looking at the issue through the lens of how humans operate on the earth right now, you know, or how everything is an economic answer, right? You know, the answer to climate change is, you know, build the economy, but in the right way, or whatever, you know, or something like that. Or green
So if you
energy.
listen-
Green energy is way cheaper than fossil fuels. We should get on board. Like, okay, you know, just
Which it isn't. You know, it's
Right.
just how much of the process do you ignore?
right.
And then is it evil people or is it people who just have no concept? And to explain it to them, you can't just call them on the phone and explain it to them. It's a whole big, huge scoop that takes time to process. And I listened to some interviews with Nate Hagen and
Yeah.
did you listen to the Daniel Schmecken, however you say his name, and Nate Hagen's the whole
No,
thing?
no.
I wish you had.
What?
You could communicate what the essence of whatever their conversations are probably better than I can. They go into a lot of detail on exactly this kind of thing, and they do have disagreements. And one of them will get part of it a little bit more realistically than the other on one thing or the other. And they're both saying the same things, but neither of them, or at least Daniel, doesn't seem willing to entertain the idea that we have to dismantle and put things back the way they were right away, even though he knows that's the long-term effect.
Right.
And I think there's a problem here really on what is moral overall. And even Elon Musk, you know, same thing. And his degree of disconnect seems rather huge.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. That's we're. Humans are not really, you know, up for really looking hard at themselves, you know, and that's why the overpopulation question is such a, you know, that's a topic nobody wants to talk about. And you know, over industrial civilization, you know, talk is something nobody wants to talk about. Nobody really wants to talk about, you know, not in a large way. People don't want to talk about, you know, how badly we have failed, you know, and how badly we're failing to actually like understand the problem, comprehend the problem. And I saw, you know, here's an interesting thing. Somebody in the truth community posted something on Twitter about going Ted Kaczynski, Plan B, and I was like, man, do you even know what his core philosophy was?
Yeah,
you know, his core philosophy was humans screwed it up. Technological industrial civilization is the worst thing ever, and we need to stop it immediately. And humans are just messing it up. He was just taking it on the level of like Ted Kaczynski. You know, that might be like, I don't know how to lead a resistance or something. I'm like, dude, you know, and I don't even agree with that necessarily, but I'm just like, you're posting this meme and you're actually putting Ted, you know, and everybody was like, yeah, Ted Kaczynski, Plan B or whatever. And I was like,
well, you know, that's
everything this person says like on their show actually goes against, you know, is talking about, actually goes against what Ted Kaczynski's core philosophy was. I'm like, you know,
so they're not a naturalist on the show.
No, I mean, well, maybe they're not. Well, I'm not saying they're not a naturalist. I'm just saying they don't, you know, they think anti-human, you know, anything about humans screwing up the planet isn't. They think the population of the planet can fit inside the state of Texas. That's what this person thinks. And I'm like, dude, you don't even know. Like,
that is not Ted Kaczynski.
No. It's like you were so far off of what Ted Kaczynski actually was about. Like, you shouldn't be posting this meme.
Have you read his book?
You're lame. Like, you're lame for posting this meme.
Did you read Ted Kaczynski's book?
I didn't read his book. No, I didn't.
I read his book 2 years ago because it comes up in conversations now.
Right.
And I never had before. And he is actually Daniel Schmackenberger brilliant, you know, and it's just that he has this sociopathic
Yeah.
relationship to what to do about it. So
Right.
his answer was to get attention by blowing something up.
Yeah. So I don't
So-
agree. I don't agree with his, you know, his
Yeah, that part of
his
it's not
answer
good.
was wrong. His
Right,
answer on what to do
exactly.
about it was wrong. But his understanding of the problem was right on. Was right
Phenomenal.
on. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I agree with you. His solution is Looney Tunes because it won't provide you any kind of basis to go forward.
Right.
It's just going to vilify your efforts.
Right.
And
But you know and it's unfortunate. You know what's really, what's really messed up. This goes back to all the way. You know, this could be a long conversation, but you know, Ted Kaczynski had childhood trauma, and there was evidence that he was in for a moment in his college in an MK Ultra program,
yeah,
right, with an MK Ultra doctor, and it's just messed up that was his answer because he was so brilliant on every other level. But then the answer that he chose, you know, it messes up again the conversation about like, well, what's wrong with industrial civilization and how humans are going about things on the planet, right? And it's hard to point out how brilliant Ted Kaczynski is because his answer was so messed up, right?
Precisely. And is that okay? This is where a lot of folks like Ted Kaczynski, and not like, I mean, to the average Joe Blow drug addict or antisocial person, is going to come across some of these realizations that there's no way a well-intended open soul is ever going to be rewarded in a way that someone who is a narcissistic, self-serving son of a bitch is going to be rewarded in our system.
Exactly.
And so, right. So how do they break down? And who takes advantage of these sensitive, brilliant people? I only have my experience. You have your experience. You have a lot of artists and, you know, more intelligent, artistic type people in your audience. And we all have our own version of those experiences. And I can tell you, in the extremes, from my experience, it gets very nasty and secretive and clandestine quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at every level, upwardly mogul, in academia, in industry, and only by the skin of my own teeth was I aware enough to run away from some of that.
Right.
And still, you know, end up broken and ostracized to whatever degree. And I
Right.
think you can fall prey to becoming Ted Kaczynski's on a heartbeat decision or occurrence.
Right.
And I think that's really scary with what's facing civilization and the general population.
Yeah.
So I think to bridge these gaps between the economic and the green tech solution people and the reality of the physics and natural basis of systems and how complexity in natural systems is thermodynamically resistant to collapse in opposition to the effects and reality of civilization, particularly industry. Those are the bridges that we have to find a way to cross.
Yep. And
Is that
you know,
well
kind of.
spoken or-
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the only way to really, and you got to find ways to do it in a, and you gotta find ways to talk about it and come at the problem with a, you know, with a compassionate heart, you know, and with a consideration, you know, for how people are gonna feel about these subjects, right? But it's always going to sound, you know, if you're like, well, technological progress is probably a myth, you know, on many levels, and industrial civilization certainly isn't the, you know, it seems cool, you know, on a lot of levels, but certainly isn't a joy, you know, and it won't, and the end of it won't be a joy either.
No, and that's what we want to avoid is the more horror we avoid, the less bad, you know.
Yeah.
And
that's the point of my discussion is, you know, you know, you don't want to, it's like telling somebody they're going to drive off of a cliff, you know, right? If they take this particular road, and and it sucks because we're set up to not even really like hear these warnings. You know, all of these warnings are scaremongering, right? If you say it to somebody, well, if you keep driving down this road the way you're going, you're going to drive right off that cliff, and they're like, shut up. You know, you're just you're full of scaremongering, and you know, you're just you're taking away my freedoms and stuff. And that's fine. I like freedom, but like, and everybody has the freedom to drive off the cliff, I guess. But like, you know, you're actually trying to tell people there's a cliff there, and you know, that's way worse than you know, turning around or maybe not doing that, driving in a different direction. Like it's actually better. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know if that allegory was really. But.
I think Pink Floyd has your allegory. It's not easy banging your heart on some mad bugger's wall.
Right.
That, you know, the end of the Wall song. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I want to give someone else a chance. So.
Well, I'm done for the day. I gotta get out of here. But it's been an interesting conversation, y'all.
Thank you.
And the time goes by very quick. But I'll be back tomorrow at the regular time. So thanks, Joseph.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. I will see you all tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thanks for hanging out with me every day. And we'll be here on all the spots. Call in, YouTube, Rockfin. And until next time, peace.